Wastewater treatment plants help protect and maintain public health. Although the main function of a wastewater treatment plant is to treat wastewater, these systems also recover valuable resources such as energy, nutrients, biosolids, and water. Many areas of the world, especially developing and arid regions, have long been recovering and reusing wastewater, particularly for irrigation purposes. Researchers from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln have found that reusing treated wastewater for agricultural purposes in small, rural communities in the United States can have many local advantages, such as reduced costs and lower labor and maintenance requirements. Irrigation lagoons are a specific type of wastewater treatment technology. These systems have the capability to apply treated wastewater onto cropland instead of discharging the treated wastewater to a nearby water body, or indefinitely storing the treated wastewater until it evaporates. In Nebraska, irrigation lagoons apply treated wastewater onto non-direct food consumption crops, which means that the crops irrigated with the treated wastewater are not directly consumed by humans. The treatment process for irrigation lagoons begins with influent wastewater flowing by gravity or being pumped from the municipality to the lagoon site, where it can undergo preliminary treatment if applicable. The wastewater then enters the lagoon cells, where it remains for a specified detention time based on design factors, treatment requirements, and the amount of wastewater. The lagoon is able to treat wastewater naturally by using bacteria to metabolize organic matter. The wastewater exits the lagoon cells in three major ways: evaporation, seepage through the liner, and in the case of irrigation lagoons, land application onto nearby agricultural land. Lagoon wastewater treatment systems are generally implemented in small, rural communities. Major reasons for implementing irrigation lagoons include converting from a mechanical wastewater treatment system, avoiding expansion of an existing discharge or complete retention lagoon wastewater treatment system, reducing operator labor requirements, or avoiding discharge permits.
Well, the first set of lagoons here in Schuyler was put in like 1960. Assume that was put in because of cost, and it was the easiest way to do treatment and an efficient way to do treatment without a lot of cost. So we already had the lagoon, so we just expanded on it from there. And in '79, we built another set of lagoons, and at that time we decided to go to irrigation to try and get rid of the water and be more environmental friendly instead of discharging it to a creek or a river or something like that. So then in 2003 we expanded again to go further than that and do more irrigation and that stuff. Again, a lot better for the environment and that stuff, and ultimate recycling of the water.
There are many barriers that can limit the success of irrigation lagoons in small communities. These include climate or seasonal variability, nearby land availability, finding willing landowners and agricultural producers, public perception of odors and groundwater contamination, and a community's optimism for growth.
Probably the biggest barriers for other systems would be land availability to be able to build the lagoons on. When we expanded in 1979 and then in 2003, we had farmers that were willing to sell us the ground and that stuff to be able to expand the system, and other places they may not have that availability of ground without having a large expenditure. Another barrier might be cost for smaller towns and stuff like that on doing that. It's still cheaper than a treatment plant and the overall cost of a treatment plant and everything, but the land availability and that stuff is probably the largest barrier that you have.
Ownership structures for these systems are important to both the community and agricultural producer or landowner. In general, the city pays for the piping to the cropland, center pivot and maintenance, pumping electricity, and soil and water monitoring. The agricultural producer receives free water. These structures are set in place in one of three major ways. Most commonly, agreements between the landowner and the city, the landowner sells to the city, or rarely through eminent domain.
The city provides the water at their cost. So we do have some backup wells that we can use, but the upshot is we don't have to have the cost of maintaining and running those wells, and we're not using, groundwater. So we get the benefit of the wastewater after it's come through the city system.
First of all, with all of our farmers that take water, it's all verbal agreement. We have no written contracts with anybody, so it's all verbal agreement. They know what we are going to provide, and we know what their responsibility is. So we own the pump stations and everything. We pay for the electricity to pump the water to them. But in the case of the farmers, these farmers here, they own the pivot and the irrigation system, and they maintain all of that, where we maintain all of the pump stations and everything to get the water to them. We also, in our next expansion, we're going to be adding on a station, and that is our expense also. We are putting up that expense and everything to be able to irrigate more ground out here.
Village maintains everything. We mow, and we put all the chemicals or enzymes in that we need to, and we own, like I said, all the land back in the town, and then we own like another, I think, 100 feet to the fence line there too. So we own this whole area where we're at and back to the west too. So, but the cost of it is, pretty cheap.
Although irrigation lagoons essentially provide free water to agricultural producers, agricultural practices and cropland can still be affected. Major agricultural concerns include crop yields, potential salinity issues, and land valuation changes.
And we haven't had anybody complain about anything out here, just besides the one landowner that thought it was killing his animals. And once we did a test on it and found out that everything that was getting discharged out wasn't harmful to animals. So it was just something they ran in, ate, or something happened to them to kill them. But otherwise, yeah, that water coming out of that third pond over there is pretty clean.
I mean, in a dry year they can run low on water, and that could be an issue if you didn't have a backup well like we do. The other thing is, I think you want to work with your agronomist because there can be saline salt buildup over time, but the city provides us with samples, water samples and analysis, so we can keep track of that. So it's something that you might have to watch after you've been doing it for several years. The nutrients are very low, which speaks well to their treatment system because there's not a lot of nitrogen in it. Maybe 3 pounds of nitrogen per acre inch is what we've been told. So you can't rely on it for nutrients. But it's been a good thing for us, just for the fact that the water's here and it's available and we can use it without depleting the groundwater.
One thing that we're asked quite a bit about is the nutrient value in that stuff. And if the lagoons are working properly and doing everything, there is not a lot of nutrient value. There is some nitrogen and that stuff in it, like John had mentioned and everything, but that varies from year to year. It isn't anything really that the farmer can count on. We give them the numbers of the nitrogen content so they know what it is and everything like that. But people may think, oh geez, a lot of nutrients, the farmer doesn't have to put anything on, and that's not the case if the lagoons and that stuff are their biological process is working properly. Again, it just works real well for us. We have a lot of willing farmers and that stuff that want to take the water. I mean, look at the cost savings that it is from them, from not having to pump use their wells and stuff like that. So it is also nice that some of the irrigators, they do have wells. So if we get into extremely dry years where we start running a little bit low, they can turn their wells on and still irrigate if they need to, and not 100% rely on us.
Even though irrigation lagoons have vast environmental, economic, and social benefits, it is oftentimes difficult to implement these systems in the U.S. because of limited agricultural producer and landowner cooperation. A better understanding of the reasoning behind implementation, barriers to implementation, ownership and financial structures, and agricultural impacts can help alleviate some concerns. Additional information on this topic may be found online in the Nebraska Extension Guide titled Treated Wastewater Reuse for Non-Direct Food Consumption Crops in Nebraska: Barriers and Benefits of Municipal Irrigation Lagoons.